water this fabric, the water sinks through, just like in a container. So if you have this on your back porch, you want to make sure that you don't mind water dripping out, because it's going to drip out. What else should we think about?
Well, the nice thing about a salad table is you can follow the sun. So if you're in a house or your backyard doesn't have a lot of sun, you just got one little patch that moves, maybe you could put this on caster wheels and move it around, catch some rays, right?
And that is a very definite advantage of growing in containers, regardless of what type container it is, whether it's a table, because two people could get on this even though it was filled with soil, with plants growing out of it, and you could move it, okay? It's not going to be that heavy that you could not move it. The same way with containers. The idea with that is you can follow the sun, or in Florida, you can follow the shade so that it's not too sunny.
There you go.
Okay, and doing that way, you can actually have tomatoes and peppers and things throughout the year. So you're not limited by planting in the ground, because once you put them in the ground, they're stable. They're not going to be moved. Case in point, I have 2 ghost peppers right now that are about this tall, this big around. This is a 7-gallon, they're in 30-gallon containers. They are going on their 3rd year, okay? So that's a perennial type of pepper. Most peppers are perennials, but they're in containers. They're not in the ground. I have the luxury of being able to pick them up and move them wherever I want them, okay? So that's an advantage of growing them in containers.
Another advantage to the salad table is if you have rabbits or the things with the noses.
Raccoons.
Armadillos.
Armadillo.
Big old holes in your backyard.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then I don't think they can crawl up there, can they?
Armadillos can.
Oh, can they?
No, armadillos cannot. Squirrels will be able to.
Yeah.
Raccoons will be able to. You know, so depending on the critter, it could still potentially be a problem. If those are problems, there's other things that you can do to help negate some of that, okay?
What about strawberries? Would that be deep enough for strawberries?
Yes, it would definitely be deep enough for strawberries. Another thought here is that if you like to have a variety, because it depends on how many people are in your household. What do you like to eat? How much food do you really have to have? If they're, you know, I mean, when my kids were at home, this wouldn't have cut anything. You know, it just wouldn't have done it. I mean, this could probably feed my grandson for maybe lunch and dinner, and that's it. And everything would be gone. So, you know, but for just 2 people, especially my age, you know, this would be a fairly decent size. You could have some salad mix. We'd have some tomatoes over here, some peppers over here in containers. And yeah, you could do quite a few different greens with that in this, and have a pretty enjoyable time. You know, I mean, we used to like to go out, and I used to have a garden at home. I have a greenhouse at home. My wife would go out and we would putter in the garden. I call it a garden, she called it her greenhouse. It was her greenhouse. And we would go out there getting ready for dinner, and we'd just take, oh, what do you want tonight? Oh, we'll have a little bit of this, and oh, you want it spicy? We'll have a little bit of arugula, or, you know, some mesclun, or whatever you want to pick. But it was a neat togetherness time, okay, for us. There's a lot of things that you can do like that you may not have thought about, that can make it a better experience for you. And these things help a lot with that.
Another couple of ideas is if you have friends or family or grandparents or parents that, you know, maybe want a garden but either don't have the space or don't want to bend down, you can make one as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to mention that we invited Jonathan because he brought us seeds that would be suitable for something like this. Of course, the seeds are also suitable for the ground, but Jonathan will also be at our event on the 18th if we decide to have the workshop, so you can buy seeds. Also, the soil, that $60 will not include the soil because everybody does their own thing with soil, but it will be available to buy at the Blodgett Nursery when we
Yes, the nursery carries 2 different types of soil. They carry this one, and then they carry a heavier one that's not as expensive. So you can do whichever way you want. What we have tried to do is we've made this, I'm a board member for Simple Living, and one of the things we try to do is, of course, enhance the finances of the group. We have approached some of the stores to give us donations. We've had not really any donations, but we've had some of the stores have stepped up and given us pretty substantial discount on the materials. The $60 price tag that is there is the retail cost of the materials alone at Lowe's, because Lowe's is giving us the biggest discount on the materials. Okay, so what we're doing is, I'm doing my time and my efforts. Mary Janine is also helping me, and you're gonna be there with our seeds, correct?
Correct.
Okay, because Blodgett's doesn't have any seeds.
And
So-
do you need an extra hand or anything like that?
Thank you.
Okay, so, you know, we're trying to do this to spur an interest, so if you have any interest in doing this, basically, you're gonna walk away with a bench for the cost of materials, and the difference between the actual cost with the discounts is, everything's gonna go into Simple Living coffers, as far as that goes, okay, as a fundraising project for them.
Any other questions?
What was the date for that?
April
18th.
18th.
Tonight is March 18th, that's April 18th, it's a Saturday. So there's gonna be a Simple Living meeting the Wednesday before, so if you're interested, you can give us your $60 then, and then we'll know how many kits to go out and buy and cut.
And if, I will throw this one out too, I didn't think of this until just now. If you would prefer to do it by credit card, I will bring my little square reader with me, okay, to that meeting as well. And you can do it by credit card if you want, and I'll donate the fee that's charged with that, so Simple Living doesn't incur any expense with that. So you can bring cash, you can bring a check, or you can bring your credit card to the next meeting, okay, in that respect. If you have the desire to build one of these, okay? So, again, I'm just throwing that out for those that are interested. If you want to do it yourself at home another time, the material, I can tell you right now, the materials are going to cost you right around $60, okay? So at least you have a price tag. They do have this rolled material in 10-foot sections. They don't have it in 5-foot sections for the hardware cloth. So your cost may go up, I think, about $75 if you're just doing one. Okay. I bought a 50-foot roll.
We use this hardware cloth to make compost bins. We just take a big round and put some wire around it, flop it on the ground, and grow all, composting.
That's a neat way to do it, because when you want to turn it, you just pick the thing up or dump it over if you can't pick it up, and then you turn your pile. Or you can set it up again and turn it into it, depending on what methodology you want. Any other questions?
Do you use hardware cloth underneath that plastic floor? I mean, is that the reinforcement you didn't
Yes.
really explain?
What, okay, that's a good question. No, I did not do it that way. What we got, yes. What we did first, you build the frame, then you take the weed mat, and you don't want to, if you've ever worked with the weed mat before, you don't want to cut it with a razor knife or a pair of scissors, because it's a woven material and it frays. I use a torch, a plumber's torch. So what I do is I staple it down, and it's pre-cut, and I use just a hand stapler. I use the Arrow T55, and staple it down, and then I'll take the hardware cloth, and I usually start at one end and tack it down, put my U-nails in, and I put these nails about every 4 inches, like that. Then I come to the other side, and I have a big screwdriver so that I get it nice and taut, and I tug on it a little bit and start a nail, and I do that with each nail as I go down. Then I come on that, so that secures the fabric and both fabrics, the cloth material and the hardware cloth, both. then I do the same thing, I do this side, and then I'll flip the table over, use the screwdriver again, and just nail it down, okay? So, I mean, that's the basic process. They're really fairly simple to build in that respect. Oh, has it got dirt in it?
No, what's that?
You don't want to make too much of a mess. Robert's not here. Okay, good question. So, what else did I miss? Yes?
Can you use plywood for the bottom instead of the hardware cloth on the, and?
You can use plywood, doesn't last that long. You can use 1x4, 1x6. You can use the fencing slats, but remember they're treated. I haven't seen any of the thin woods that are not pressure treated. You know, like fencing slats or things that you can buy. Paul,
How about Tyvek, house wrap? Would that work?
Tyvek is not really very permeable though.
Have you not seen
I mean, that would work, but you may get
Make
pockets
it box
Unless you put some holes in it.
of water in it.
Yeah,
Even with holes in it, you may get pockets
okay.
of water.
What about,
If you have it though,
Yeah,
you know, and you were building one of these,
yeah,
and if you're like Tom and I, you know, farmers don't have
yeah.
unlimited finances, so we tend to use whatever we got and we make it work. Okay, so nothing wrong with that in that respect. Tyvek is also fairly non-permeable. It doesn't, it's gonna be the same way as this cloth material. So,
what about pallets, old pallets? Are they?
depending, good one. If you're using old pallets, you have to be careful of what the pallets were used to move. Keep in mind, okay, we have a lot of chemical plants around, and there's a lot of things that pallets are put on that we wouldn't want in this particular setting. Okay, so if you get your pallets from, say, a juice plant or something like that, then depending on what was on them, it should be fairly safe. But that's the only thing I would, you know, because it's something we're gonna be eating, that's the only thing that I would want to be careful of. You know, you can actually use, I'll get you 1 second. You can actually use pallets to make a herb container. If you set, and there's designs for these on the internet too, where you take it and you set it sideways and you put it up against a wall. You take some of this cloth or sphagnum moss and you pack the pockets so that it actually holds soil and you can plant in it. I've done those where I've used fertilizer pallets to be able to make some of those. But I was very cautious about what, I wouldn't want to get some pesticide pallets. You know, so I would look, and when a ton of fertilizer would come in, you know, I'd sort of, those pallets are mine, guys, so, kind of a thing. Okay, yes, sir?
Have you looked at the, those recycled poly lumber? They sell it in some of the nursery supply catalogs with a 50-year warranty. They advertise it for like making benches and things like that.
Yes, that would definitely be a way to go, except for cost.
One thing about that stuff, if you cut it, don't cut it where you're growing anything.
Yeah.
The residual is not good in your soil.
Like the sawdust?
Yeah, it's not really sawdust.
Well,
What they're talking about, the compounds that those things are made out of are plastic-type compounds. Barley retriever dates don't matter. A botanist that I befriended in California when I was in school did some studies on plastics, ground-type plastics in the soil, and actually found that some plants could consume them and take portions of them into their root system, and they just totally encompassed the pieces of plastic so that when you dissected them, the plastic was inside. So if you're doing things and cutting things where you're going to be growing edible crops, you don't want to do that in your crop area, which is what you were saying. So you know, I have a barn, so I do all that stuff up in the barn or up in the workshop, in that respect. So we just want to caution you, if you're doing that at home, don't be out in the garden if you're going to be planting in the soil underneath, because of potential problems. They're minute, and I may be extreme on the safety side, but I don't think anybody can be too cautious when it comes to your safety or your children's or your grandchildren's safety. Yes, ma'am?
How often would you change your soil? I mean, how many crops would you get, like growing lettuce?
Oh, heavens. The soil bins that I was telling you about, we never changed the soil, and that was after 40-some years. One of the reasons why, carbon, which is one of the primary constituents of this bag, is degraded in the Central Florida environment at the rate of almost an inch a year. So if you figure my beds were 18 inches deep, that over 40 years, that soil had been replaced many times. Okay, because we had, every time we put a new crop in there, we had to add soil to it because the bed sank. So when you see a container, I'm sure you all have noticed, and maybe you've never even thought about that, but when you grow things in a container for a long time, it seems like, whoa, where'd you go way down there? Kind of a thing. That's because the soil, the organic material, is actually consumed, okay, by the atmosphere. We have to understand, the soil is a very, very dynamic, we're getting off on soils now. So soil is a very, very dynamic situation. The plant itself, and this always gets me, I gotta go off on this tangent a minute. This is a factory, okay? We don't think of it as a factory, but this is a factory. The primary input is sunlight. It takes all the sunlight in and it produces basic sugars. The basic sugars are translocated down to the roots, and it acts as a pump, a very, very strong physical pump, and it pumps up and down. You get an extreme flow. These things have a big vascular system that nobody thinks about, but you get sugars and all different kinds of cellular metabolites that are going both ways, up and down, all through the veins of the leaf of the plant. And it's extremely a dynamic situation that's going on there. And the results that we get with that, if you have a really good, healthy factory growing, is that you get something that is extremely nutritious for you. If the factory is going along, oh, okay guys, you know, oh no, it's 3 o'clock, we only got 2 hours left before we can punch the clock and let's go home. That's not a very good factory. Okay, you want the kind of factory going that's, you know, oh, hey, come on, oh no, it's almost time for shift change. Oh, all right guys, okay, hey Joe, come on, it's your turn right here. And Joe comes in and he takes off and he's going. Plants work 24 hours a day. Okay, 24 hours a day. They're either producing or they're consuming. They don't stop. It can be freezing cold outside. There is still processes going on inside that plant. It gets a little iffy once it gets over about 110, 112 degrees because proteins start to denature at about 120 degrees. And that's why our bodies can't take much more than that because you start cooking inside. Okay, that's because your proteins denature. So the same thing happens to the plant. So there is an upper limit and there is a lower limit as to when the plant is extremely active. But if you look at it, it's an extremely dynamic system. And the better you have this system growing and flowing, then the healthier it's going to be. I will also add, if you have a very dynamic system growing, you will not have pests. You will not have insects because Dr. Philip Callahan did his whole life's work on electromagnetic frequencies drawing insects towards them. If they're the right frequency, they're food for the insects because it's a weak plant. If it's a strong plant, they don't send off those frequencies. the plants are looking for a home, the insects are looking for a home, they don't see this plant. But you can have a guy right next to him that's not very healthy or is not doing well for some reason, and to us, the color's off a little bit. Oh, what's wrong with this? Oh. The insects see it. It's a food magnet for them, okay?
Next question. Any more questions?
Okay. Sorry, had to get off on that tangent.
That's good, no, that's good. People ask about that all the time.
Okay, any other questions? All right, hopefully, oh, yes.
This wheat mat, where is it sold? I've never seen it.
The commercial weed mat, I know our nursery, Blodgett Gardens, carries it. I don't know what they charge for it. For me to buy this, I know we have to buy 10 huge rolls at a time to get a decent price on it. So, but I know we have it at the store. So, it's located at 3821 Edgewater Drive, right next to Bishop Moore High School. In that respect.
Hey, Dick,
Okay?
thank you for an awesome presentation.